listening to Answers for the Family with Alan Cardoza and Matt Polachek, only on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome to another edition of Answers for the Family. I'm your host, Alan Cardoza, and I'll be flying solo today as my co-host, Dr. Matt Polachek, is focusing on his work as director of the Hazelton Betty Ford Center here in Los Angeles. Now, for those of you that have been listening, sending in questions and comments, thank you so much. And please continue to help spread the word that every Monday from 11 a.m. to noon Pacific time, this show will bring special guests that can inspire, educate, and in some cases entertain, while bringing answers and options to many things that can make our lives happier, healthier, and more successful. Now, Answers for the Family will address issues such as locating a runaway teen, family crisis intervention, building self-esteem, dealing with addictions, and so much more. And we'll introduce you to talented authors and new innovations in the areas of health, security, and fun for you and your family. Now, before we bring on our guest, I'm going to share a letter that we just received. This one reads, I just want to thank you for the Attitude of Gratitude Journal. We downloaded it at the beginning of summer and have had the best summer in years with our two teenage boys. So, first of all, I want to thank the person for sending us in this letter. It really makes us feel good. This type of feedback allows us to know that by having that out there, that it is making a difference, because that is our goal with this show, is to make a positive difference in the lives of as many people as possible. Now, I also get asked from time to time, what can I do to help the show? Well, I've got an answer now. And if you can go to iTunes and give us a review. If you like the show, tell us why you like it. And if there are things we can do to make it a better experience for you, let us know what we can do. Now, I want to bring on our guest. Our guest today is Erin Leyba. Erin is an individual and marriage counselor specializing in helping parents of young children. In addition to writing her popular blogs, she speaks often to parenting and childcare groups, offering moms and dads practical, motivational help based on the strategies, thoughts, and tools she's developed over her years of counseling families. Now, her new book, Joy Fixes for Weary Parents, 101 quick research-based ideas for overcoming stress and building a life you love, helps parents stay joyful in spite of those little events like mud pies made on the kitchen floor and stepping on that wayward Lego from time to time. Erin, welcome to Answers for the Family.
Thank you, Alan.
Well, I want to tell you, it's been a great read, and for anybody out there, if you get the chance, as I was reading it, one of the first things I thought was, where was this when my kids were younger? So thank you for that. And some of the things that you touch on, it's called Joy Fixes for Weary Parents, but at the same time, I realized that you also go into some statistics and things of some of the reasons maybe why we need a little help to keep things, a little more joyful. Now, I consider my role as a parent as one of my greatest joys in my life. And although you focus on joy fixes, you also refer to parenting as one of the toughest jobs ever. What do researchers report, and what are some of the statistics related to depression, anxiety, domestic isolation, and overall relationship breakdown?
Yeah, I think one of the things we know is that a lot of new parents and new mothers suffer from postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, sleep deprivation, kind of chronic sleep issues. They're also, really overworked. A lot of people are balancing work and home life, and often having as little as 17 minutes of free time to themselves each day. That was a recent study that just came out that showed moms work an average of about 90 some hours a week and have about 17 minutes of free time to themselves. So I think people are really, struggling with depression, anxiety, but also just feeling out of sorts. They're dealing with kind of a huge identity shift and a lack of time to process all the things that are going on. And I think another, significant research finding is that 67% of couples experience a sharp decline in their marital satisfaction and their relationship satisfaction after they have a baby together, and that often persists into subsequent years. So when 67% of people are really struggling in their partnership, I think it shows us that it's common, it's really normal to have issues after you have a baby. Even though you have so much more joy in your life from your baby, there's also other issues that it can be really helpful if you attend to those and are really intentional about how you address those.
Yeah, and that was one of the statistics that I think, kind of shocked me the most. I mean, I knew about some of the other ones, but that one in particular, when we look obviously at our divorce rate and things, and then to be able to say, 67% are having a decline after having a child, I thought was pretty amazing. Now, I know that there is good news in Joy Fixes for Weary Parents, but what are some of the action steps to assist parents in becoming fiercely deliberate about their own joy?
I think, some of the action steps are really about being really good to yourself. That parents, especially in modern parenting, people are really hard on themselves. They're almost perfectionistic in kind of what they expect out of themselves and their lives and their kids, and they just put a lot of pressure on things, and they take parenting very seriously, which is a good thing. But also sometimes I think it can get a bit too serious, and it can be hard to bring in that self-compassion, in the moment.
And one of the things that I saw in the book, and it wasn't something that I thought about, but you share with us what you mean in the book when you say grieve your former life.
Yeah, I think it's important to take that time to process, and realize the fact that your lifestyle before kids was really different from your lifestyle after kids. And there's a lot of things that look really different, like especially even your view toward work or the kind of work you do or the amount of hours you can put in changes, but also, what you do with your free time or your hobbies changes. So one example from the book is a couple who went to Colorado and we're used to kind of going hiking and biking and thought, oh, we'll just bring we'll bring our kids along and we'll do everything we used to do. But the kids got, sick, and they ended up in urgent care twice that week, and they tried to put them in the bike trailer, and the kids weren't having it. And they just, their expectations for kind of just folding their old life into their new one just weren't that smooth. That often it does take a little bit of time to look at our feelings about what are we missing? How can we, still include a piece of that in our life, but also adapt to our new life, like at the local park with our kids, which is going to be, a better fit for their new family, but also still, fit in a bike ride for themselves that morning as well.
Yeah, when you were talking about the trip to Colorado with that family, it sort of reminded me that I was one of those, because I was very much into staying physically fit, that I went out and got one of those jogger strollers. And I thought, okay, this is going to be my answer to that. And after a while, the kids didn't really like it. They're like, can we go home? Can we go back? This isn't fun. I want to go home and swim. Or go home and do something else. And I realized that, I'm now trying to make a decision that I think is helping me. It doesn't necessarily mean it's necessarily fun for them. So, it certainly brought back that memory.
Yeah. And then I think there's just, people don't really talk about that piece that you lose, like that, your priorities shift, and that can leave you feeling really unsettled. Even you might have used to gone out with a certain group of friends all the time, and then all of a sudden you're really exhausted and you kind of want to go to bed at 9 o'clock, or things are shifting. So it's important to kind of take that time and look at the things that you are different for you, that you've lost, and then attend to those feelings. Because I think when you miss that step, you end up, putting those feelings on something else. You end up feeling resentful of your family or your kids or new lifestyle instead of just attending to that grief so you can move on more joyfully.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point when you bring up the thing about your friends, because what I found was that, my single friends, they still continue to want to do the things that they were doing, which I completely understood. And I didn't feel that it was right for me to go do that when I needed to be around for the kids. But I also realized that I had either family members or other friends that had started having kids earlier, and I didn't have them till a little later in life. And so what I found was there still was a gap there, because at a time in which one group of friends had now teenage kids, I had little ones. So I still felt like there wasn't this connection to be able to do things together.
Right, yeah, and I think that happens with a lot of people where they're at different stages in life, or things get really complex and it's hard because you end up drifting away from those friends unless you make a real commitment to that relationship by saying, like, we're going to get together every once a month on Saturday for brunch, or we're going to really commit to keeping this friendship going.
Yeah, and I think along those same lines, with your spouse, I remember that there was a couple that was actually a friend of my parents, and I used to ask them, what's the secret? Because I loved the fact that even though they were a generation older than me, they acted like, they were dating, they were newlyweds. And he said one of the most important things that he did while raising his children was that they had Saturday night date night in which they went somewhere. They went away and somebody else watched the kids, and they just focused on themselves. And, now as I look back and I realize, that was probably one of the greatest pieces of advice that I probably should have listened to a little more than, or taken to heart a little more, because that seems like it's very important as well.
Yeah, I think date nights are a great way to stay connected to partners and really get some of the lightheartedness back in your relationship. That, again, things that can be serious. You're talking about the household and if you need paper towels again, or if you should get rid of cable, and what the kids had for breakfast. And it becomes, really all about the household and the family. And I think if you can get outside and really take that time away, just the two of you time, that it's fundamentally different from the time that you're at home. And that really builds your relationship and gives you a chance to kind of laugh and joke around and bring some of the more, romantic and flirtatious gestures back into your relationship, and also just de-stress and get a little bit of perspective, but to stay bonded, as partners.
Well, I think we have a listener question coming in that is, it sounds like they are right in the middle of what it is that we're talking about. This one reads, I have 3 small children, ages 3, 6, and 7, and work full-time as a nurse. My husband and I are totally exhausted parents whose entire life is consumed with work and maintaining a family. We have read a dozen books on time management and other topics and tried other tactics, but we still keep falling back into overwhelm. I am hoping you can share what your book brings that would. Thanks so much. And this is from Julia in San Francisco.
Thanks, Julia, for your question. And I also have 3 small kids. They're 4, 6, and 7, so I definitely can relate. And that's part of my passion for writing this book, is trying to carve out, feeling that kind of overwhelm where you're beating back kind of gobs of erupting laundry, and you're cleaning the kitchen every night, and you're always kind of on the go packing lunches and things like that. And that's exactly what this book's about, is really creating those little spaces in the day where you can really connect with your kids, kind of connect with yourself, connect with each other, you and your partner, and and really notice the very bright spots in your day and kind of take those in and realize that it's almost like a mental training exercise to be able to train yourself to look for the good in each day and really focus on it and create like these tiny rituals of connection and really of joy in your day. It could be something as simple as trying to go to bed at the same time as your partner at least a few nights a week. And then you have that time to talk and cuddle and be intimate and just be together, even if you are really tired, that you just have committed to that in your relationship of just staying connected in that very simple way instead of one of you up watching TV or surfing the web or cleaning or working, or things like that, that you commit to going to bed at the same time and creating that little bit of time to connect with each other. Or it could be with your kid, you get home from work and you walk around the block with them and let them ride tricycles or bikes or scooters just around the block for 15 minutes before dinner. And then you feel like even though, you might still have that kind of overwhelm in your day, you've had those really bright moments too with your kids, or maybe just like listening to your kids at bedtime and telling them a funny story or singing them a song. Then that we had this meaningful routine. And it's kind of like what you're talking about with your attitude of gratitude journal. If you're really tuned in to, gratitude is kind of like, often people think of it like, what am I thankful for in the day? And I think gratitude could also be like, what am I looking forward to in the day? What little things can I do to make this day great? But also, I think the other piece of it is kind of attending to yourself and realizing that you need some care too, that you can't pour from an empty cup, that you need to kind of, balance a little bit by making sure that you're getting a little time to yourself and time to renew and replenish as well.
Yeah, I think that was probably my favorite chapter in the book, and that's where you talk about it, and it's, notice and savor joy, grace, and love. That whole chapter, which seemed really focused on gratitude, on thank yous. It's interesting to me, that when I see situations, outside of my own home, it seems like there are a lot of families that have sort of gotten away from that, that simple term of thank you. We're all doing something for someone else, in the home, and having, having set the model by being able to say thank you or to say please or to show some form of appreciation and gratitude, I think is so huge, not only just to keep your own family life happy, but these are the things in the world. And I think it's setting a great precedent, which is part of our job as parents.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and so again, for everybody out there with the book, I mean, there's a lot of great things, but I'm just pointing out one particular chapter, that I found to be just really beneficial for any of us. In fact, there was another part that there were certain things that I sort of felt like I could instantly relate to, and one of them, and I'm a person who I admit I've been accused of overanalyzing things, and it could be being a detective or whatever it is that I, do as part of my personality. But you touch on the book how you rebel against should-haves and could-haves. And I think that that's a huge issue, because I know that I was one of the ones that would do that, is afterwards, after we made a decision and did something with the children or whatever, and afterwards I'd go like, oh man, I should have done this, or I could have done that. How do we get away from that to where we're not second-guessing ourselves?
Yeah, and just, I think that's about kind of that self-compassion, where you're able to kind of realize that nobody's a perfect parent and that it's just a process of learning and really, just being able to let go of our mistakes and think like tomorrow is a new day, this is what I'm going to do differently next time and things like that.
Yeah, I was going to say in the book, one of the ways in which you touch on that is you say, stop kicking your own butt. Share a little bit as to what you mean by that. Whereas I think a lot of us are a lot harder on ourselves than maybe we should be.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that their own butts is often by comparing themselves to other people all the time. That it's kind of a subtle process, but where you see your neighbor doing something, or you hear about, this other kid from preschool reading when they're 3 years old, and they taught themselves to read when they're, 3, and another kid swimming when they're 2 years old. And, and also Facebook is notorious for looking at, scrolling through, and the research that I cite in the book is that the more you go on Facebook in a 2-week period, the worse you feel about yourself and your life. And that's been repeated in various studies, that it's kind of this very subtle process of comparing yourself to other people and then feeling bad about it, because you see the best parts of other people's lives put forward. You see this perfect picture at Disney World, but you don't see the hour-long meltdown because the kid, was tired,
right,
or things like that. You just always see this little bright spot, even though, there may have been and probably were all these different challenges throughout the day. You catch that one perfect moment that looks like a Hallmark card. So, I think one of the ways parents beat themselves up is by comparing themselves to other people, and then always thinking, I'm not doing a good enough job. I didn't teach my kid to read yet, even though the normal reading age is, more like 7 years old, or things like that. But I think another thing is that, one study I read that said that the great majority of parents feel criticized by other people. They feel judged by either their parents or by strangers or by neighbors or things like that. So I think they take other people's comments, which are kind of like a normal part of parenting, and they take them really to heart. That, they take them in and let them affect themselves. So it's kind of like beating themselves up over something that someone might have said in passing that was kind of insensitive or critical. But I also think, parents are hard on themselves because they kind of expect that they are just going to keep going like Energizer bunnies without those kind of breaks, without getting away for a little bit or taking a rest or, going out for a date night, that they feel like they should be able to go 24/7 and not get tired. And that's just a hard expectation on people.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point, which is the feeling judged. I know it as someone who works with at-risk youth, and we transport them to specialized programs, or we locate them if they have run away. The conversations with the parents, I find, are so difficult for them because they feel like, because they're having to share information that is negative about their child, and realizing that we as the detective, we need to have that information if we're to find them. So we need information not only about their friends, but we need information about what they're doing with their friends. Are they doing drugs with them? Have they gotten in trouble? What are the other things? And you're so right that there's that sense of feeling judged that I find that with some parents, we have to first explain to them that they are not alone, and that this is not something that is, their child is not the only one that has gotten in this type of trouble, so that they can focus on allowing us to help. And so what are some of the things that we can do as parents to not feel like we're being judged whenever we're discussing or working on something that is perceived as a negative point in regards to our children?
Yeah, I think one thing is to realize that some people, some kids have harder behaviors than others, and it's not necessarily it's not the parent's fault necessarily. It's just some kids are born with really strong-willed temperaments. Some are, really sensitive, or they are born with different personalities and different sets of challenges. And I think when kids show those kind of challenges, parents often feel like they did something wrong or they messed up. If their sensitive child is kind of crying and having a meltdown, or feeling really sad about something. They feel, oh no, what's wrong with me that my child is crying? Like, what did I do wrong? And instead of just realizing that kids are just wired really differently and that it's not reflective of their parenting, but it's kind of a window for them to really show up in their parenting,
exactly.
to show up and
Yeah, and one of the things that I used to do when my kids were little, and I would be speaking to a parent who I could tell was having a difficult time being honest with me about the information that we needed, and I would stop them. I'd say, let me share something with you. First of all, there are things that we can do just by not being the parent. And the example would be is that I would say to this other parent, you can probably get my child to go to bed at 8 o'clock better than I can, because even at 7 years old, they've already figured out my buttons. And it's, can I have a glass of water? Can you rub my back? Can I watch one more TV show or whatever? They're already pushing their buttons. So I'm trying to tell that parent, so you don't need to feel bad about the things that you're sharing with me, or looking at it and saying, how come this person can successfully get my child to a specialized program or something, and then the parent is feeling, less than a good parent because they don't feel they can do it themselves. So I think sometimes just sharing with them, with anybody, that, recognizing that sometimes somebody coming in from outside only because the child doesn't know your buttons yet. So, yeah, I think there's lots of things that we can do. And so for those parents that are out there thinking about it, sometimes it's a family member, or a professional, within the field, a counselor that can come in, and, the parents that are embarrassed about taking their child in for counseling. Well, first of all, the person's trained to be able to do that. But secondly, the child doesn't know that counselor's buttons. So that's one of the advantages that they're going to have right from the get-go. So would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the other factors that contribute to child's behavior and us as parents trying to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves as well as the child?
Yeah, and I think, understanding the factors that contribute to a child's behavior are really important, because I think I just wrote a blog post called Not Naughty, and it's about 10 ways kids appear to be acting bad but aren't. And it's basically about that research shows that a lot of parents feel that kids should be able to do things at younger ages than they can actually do them, that their brains let them do them. Like, a lot of parents feel that kids should be able to resist the urge to do something that's forbidden, at young ages, and that doesn't develop until age 3.5 or 4, or the kids should be able to share when they're little. And that, again, doesn't develop usually till 4 years old, that skill. So kind of understanding that, a lot of kids, there's a part of the brain that doesn't develop until almost the teenage years when it's fully developed. But when they're little toddlers, they don't have that sense of control, or that sense of, being able to manage their impulses, that they are just so impulsive. And you might say, don't throw that, and they just throw it anyway. Mm-hmm. Things like that. So I think if you kind of know that going in, and toddlers they test the limits, they test the boundaries, and they're trying to understand the rules of a place, and they're really, they're so physically active, and it's really hard for them to sit still. And, they might be, fighting with cardboard swords or running circles around your couch, and they're not being naughty. They're just, showing you that they have so much energy, and they probably need to go outside for a little bit. I think when you can kind of reframe those situations, then you don't feel as much like, oh, my kids are being naughty again. It's more like a feeling like they're being kids, and this is what I could be doing about it, in different ways. I think that, the core conditions of being really hungry or tired, even if a kid went to bed an hour later than their usual bedtime, then you'll see those behaviors all the next day. They cry more easily, they get upset, they're more, and things like that. And you can just realize, oh, my kids, again, they're not being bad. They're just really tired because I put them to bed too late last night. I think those kind of simple reframes for everyday life can be so helpful for parents, and also help them feel more joyful. They don't feel like their kids are just bad and running all over or things like that. They're just feeling like they're just normal kids, and these are some of the reasons, that are why they're going on. And, Janet Lansbury, an early childhood educator, says that, toddlers, they have big feelings, and they haven't been learned to hide their feelings or stuff them or, muffle them like we have as adults. But if we just let their feelings be, a lot of times they might have, a child might have a big meltdown or crying or things like that. And that's, again, they're not just whining, they're just kind of getting their feelings out. They haven't learned how to manage them yet.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and and I agree with you. We need to let them be creative, let them be adventurous. Not to the point to where it's dangerous, but that's part of being a child. And I think sometimes we focus too much on trying to turn them into little adults too early. So now for everybody, go ahead. No, all of a sudden I was getting an echo. But for everybody out there, stay with us. And if you want to follow along with us, you can go to Erin's website, and it's erinleyba.com. That's ErinLeyba.com. You can open up another window on your computer. You can follow along with us. In the meantime, we're going to take a break. We will be right back. You are listening to Answers for the Family.
Founded over 30 years ago to meet the needs of families in crisis, West Shield has continually focused on resolving issues that negatively impact families and businesses. Our signature therapeutic transportation service helps to ensure that adolescents in crisis are safely transported to specialized schools, programs, and treatment centers with unsurpassed experience and success. We are supported by our full-service licensed investigation agency that has legally, professionally, and compassionately located hundreds of runaways and teens. We are experienced and qualified to help, offering solutions which may include referrals to our international network of top professionals in the fields of educational consulting, psychology, psychiatry, and investigations. Simply put, West Shield Adolescent Services and West Shield Investigations are the best solutions when your family is facing a personal crisis. Call 1-800-899-8585, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 1-800-899-8585, or visit our website at westshield.com. Thank you.
And we're back. You're listening to Answers for the Family. Our guest is Erin Leyba, and we are talking about joy fixes for weary parents. 101 quick research-based ideas for overcoming stress and building a life you love. So, Erin, we have more questions that have come in. This one reads, I am awaiting the arrival of your book that I purchased last week after receiving the press release that you were going to be on this show. It is for my goddaughter, who will be a mom in 3 months. She is a driven career woman. She has only been married a year, and I am hoping that your words of wisdom will help her keep themselves together after becoming parents, as so many couples seem to fall into difficulty with the added responsibility of a child. What are some other things I can do to help them without becoming the meddlesome godmother? This is from Betsy in Portland.
Oh, that's so nice from Betsy, that question and caring question. I think this book would be a good purchase for them because there is a whole section on ways that couples can kind of anchor their happiness in everyday life and anchor their closeness. That the little things they can do throughout the day to prevent that silent drift apart that happens to so many couples. John Gottman and the Gottman Institute have found that 3 years into a relationship, the first three or so years, people, end up arguing a lot. And a lot of people break up 3 years into a relationship, but 10 years out into a relationship, they end up breaking up because they've just drifted apart. They've just lost that close connection that they had. They just end up living kind of separate lives and feeling like they're just too distant from each other. So the book really has a lot of ideas about how to, simple things like how you greet your partner in the morning, committing to, really close greetings and goodbyes. That if you wake up in the morning and you check your smartphone and you go downstairs, you barely even say hello to your partner, versus if you're very intentional about, I'm going to hug them and give them a kiss or a hug first thing in the morning. And every time they leave, I'm going to say something nice and, give them a hug and some kind of touch. And then when they get home, even if the kids are running wild and the dinner, in dinner's on the stove, that if your partner walks in the door, that you take that moment to acknowledge them and, with a kind word. But I think, so there's a lot of different ideas about research-based ways that couples can stay close and connected. But I think as a grandmother, as a mother of a couple, I think one of the greatest things they can do is to offer to babysit, like you said, once a week, once every other week, so the couple can go out on date night, even though, they would be busy and sounds like hard, a really driven working job, that working parents need those date nights too, that, they may be more reluctant to go out, at night, but I think really taking that time to themselves can make them a lot more joyful, and then that they're able to, spread a lot more positive energy toward their kids if they've had that time to replenish and de-stress and connect with their partner. Then they're really able to be more present when they get home. So
yeah. And so I know we've talked a little bit about those dates. What about, it wasn't something that I was as familiar with, but, now I see a lot. In fact, even in a local, I don't want to call it a chat room, but it's called Nextdoor. But I see people posting that are moving into the area, and they're wanting to set up play dates, and so they're putting on there how old their children are. I just read one, and they said, I've just moved into the area, and I have a 5 and a 7-year-old, and it's during the summer, so they haven't gotten into school yet. I'd like to know from some of our close neighbors if we can set up a play date. And I thought that was very positive and very unique. So share a little bit about play dates and the value of those.
Yeah, and I think play dates and play groups are really beneficial for kids and also for parents. I think, modern parenting, we don't have that built-in community. A lot of people don't have that, versus the olden days when people had circles of different ages and different family members are surrounding them. And now we all live in different houses, and it can get very isolating for kids and parents. So especially when your kids are young and they're not in school yet. I think, research shows that playgroups can really connect parents, and that it really affects their, sense of community years down the road. And then, other research that I was just reading showed that, parents are really responsible when kids are little. If the parents make an effort to help get their kids together with other kids, really make a committed effort, then the kids end up, growing up with more social opportunities. Because back about 20 years ago, people could often just go out on their streets and just find kids to play with. They would just play with the neighbors. Mm-hmm. And although that's still really true on certain streets, a lot of places, at least in America, there's this idea of the scheduled play date, and you have to really make a lot more of an effort at it to get those social opportunities for kids a lot of times.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because I can remember back in the time of, we lived in a cul-de-sac, so you got home from school and all the kids that lived in that cul-de-sac decided on whatever game you were going to play at the end of the cul-de-sac or at the park nearby. And I think now with so many more people living in an inner city situation, it would seem that that's got to be more and more difficult, and as you say, has to take a little bit more planning to actually get that done.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you also talk about healthy lifestyle activities. So what are some tips for parents? Because I think that one of the things that we need to do is to keep changing it up. You know, if something starts to get stale, I think that the kids are not going to be as interested. And I think that's an area where people could really use some help, which is what are some tips to keep getting, new and different healthy lifestyle activities for themselves and their children?
I think it's really taking a step back and looking at, a weekend and saying, like, if we had a 10 out of 10 weekend and we had the best weekend ever, what would we have done this weekend? What would we have really enjoyed as a family? And sometimes kids are so overscheduled and so overbooked that they're exhausted, going from soccer practice and gymnastics practice and, all these different structured things, that they are kind of losing some of the joy in it. I think really looking at what activities you do enjoy as a family and then creating some time for those, but also kind of keeping the structured activities to a certain level, that not overbooking kids. And I think different kids have different capacities for how many structured activities they actually like going to. Some kids like going to, more than others, but I think one of the problems with families is they just don't have a lot of downtime to just really enjoy each other. They're often saying to their kids, like, hurry up, we got to get your shoes on, let's get out the door, let's go, and it becomes exhausting for them. So if you looked and you took that step back and looked at your lifestyle and said, like, what is a Saturday we would really enjoy doing? What would we love? Going hiking together, going down to the lakefront and having a picnic together and just playing sports, just our family, instead of, bringing our kids to all these different practices. That might be, a happier weekend for them.
Yeah. So I think for some of those parents out there that they have soccer practice, music lessons, and Little League all scheduled, for the weekend, maybe sitting down with the child and saying, if we were to get rid of one of these, which one would you want us to get rid of? And maybe start weaning back. Would that be a good way to start for those parents that are in that overwhelmed standpoint of every minute of their day is booked taking their kids somewhere?
Yeah, I think it just looking at what could they cut out from their schedule. What, if they had to give something a number, like apple picking or, Pee-wee T-ball or, gym class for their 2-year-old or whatever, what would they give it? Would it be, a 10 out of 10? Do they love going? Does the kid love it? Or would it be more like a 3, like it's kind of a hassle? And if something does, just become blah or not that great, to really cut it out of the schedule to make room for that really precious, downtime, family time, just goofing off time as well. And I'm not saying, cut everything out. It's a lot of kids, love their structured activities, but I think, it's easy to get overwhelmed and overbooked with those kind of things. And it's easy to kind of book your schedule with the things that, aren't top on your list. Like, yeah.
Yeah, well, I like your idea of sort of putting a number, a 1 to 10 number out of all of the things that they're doing, because then, if they have 2 things that are, one's a 7 and one's a 9, and then they have one thing it's a 3 to them and it's a 2 to you, that's probably going to be the easy one to let go. So, but that's great. And then they still feel like they're involved in the decision. So seems like a win-win to me. We have another question coming in, and this one relates to when the kids get a little bit older. So this one reads, one of my best friends is going through hell with her 14-year-old daughter, who is defiant and verbally abusive, publicly and privately. My friend says that she is afraid to discipline her because she is worried that her daughter won't like her. My friend is the definition of a weary single parent. Does your book touch on this problem, and if so, how?
Well, the book is geared toward parents of 0 to 8-year-olds, so it's more about when the kids are younger. But I think a lot of the ideas, could still relate to a 14-year-old, a 14-year-old's relationship with her mother. So it's kind of, some of the ideas are things like really spending quality one-on-one time, focused quality one-on-one time with your child. And I think that still applies to teenagers, and really, picking an activity that both of you will really enjoy and making that a routine, a ritual, a tradition in your family that, one dad took his kid to a baseball game every single summer, for their whole lives, and always went out for pie afterward. Or, one mom always got her nails done with her daughter, and that was their thing, even though, and it's just simple things like that where you can build in that really one-on-one time to keep working on that relationship, even though it is strained. It kind of gives you a break from the everyday strain when it's just the two of you and you're purposely doing something fun together. But I think the other, part of that question was about boundaries and limits. And I write, in the book, which is more geared toward younger kids, about how safe kids feel when there are strong boundaries and they really have consistency and limits, and there is that kind of follow through. So I think it's similar for teenagers, that they really, crave those boundaries and that consistency and that follow through from their parents, but also without, any kind of contempt, any kind of, frustration, annoyance, almost like delivering a boundary or consistency without so much emotion, but just holding the line in kind of a gentle, compassionate, caring way. Even though in the moment it might feel like that would make, them hate you, that is what they are really craving.
I don't think we could end the show any better. The time has flown by. Erin, I've loved this time with you, and I think that really is a great way to end it. And it sort of goes to that point of parenting is still your job. You're not there to be their best friend, and making them safe. When you do your job, making them safe is so much more important than, quote, being their best friend or worrying if they're going to like you, because as a parent, sometimes you have to make the tough decisions. So thank you for that. So again, for everybody out there, Erin's website, it is ErinLeyba.com. It is a great book. It's a great read. And one of the other things that's really nice about it is, if you're thinking about one particular point or one particular subject, the book is laid out in such a way that you can sort of go right to that chapter. I mean, you can go right to that question. If you're thinking about, should I be giving myself little rewards? Well, guess what? There's a page for that. So I highly recommend the book for anybody out there that is raising children, really of any age. And there's a lot of great things for our personal relationships as well. So, Erin, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much.
All right. And for everybody else out there, please be sure to put us on your calendar and tune in next Monday when we're joined by Bobby Brink, founder of Lions, Tigers, and Bears, the Wildlife Sanctuary in San Diego. And we're going to discuss their children's wildlife rescue education program, which I think is something it's really important that we make sure that kids get to understand, because I know that I'm working with many kids that are not getting that opportunity. Now, if you've missed or you want to share the show with your friends, please visit our archives of past shows at answersforthefamily.com, and you may also subscribe or resubmit your name to download your free copy of the Attitude of Gratitude Journal, your 21-day guide to achieving the quality of thankfulness through self-discovery. And the next time you're on Facebook or Twitter, please remember to stop by our page, check out some of our latest posts. If you like them, please like us and spread the word. For everybody out there, have a great week, be good human beings, and be with us again next week on Answers for the Family.
You're listening to Answers for the Family with Alan Cardoza and Matt Polachek, only on LA Talk Radio.